Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Crimson Crossover podcast presented by the Field of 68. I'm Christian Sykes, joined as always by Charles Branch, and we got the full crew today, Joey Blackwell. And as you can see, we have a fourth guest, noted Canadian Missouri fan and alumni, Nick Kelly. How you doing today, Nick?
Well, it's great to be with you, but I've never had such a factually incorrect introduction before, but I'll take it. I guess to correct the facts, I'm American and I went to Missouri, but I was there during some pretty rough years of Mizzou basketball, so didn't never really become much of a fan. But nonetheless, good to be with you guys.
So
It's the
you
definition of
were,
fair weather right there. Oh, I went there and they weren't good, so I never became a fan.
well,
I'm just
so
saying what happened. Like it was brutal. There was a time where Kim Anderson literally before like kind of like I guess what would it have been? Almost like a scrimmage before the season. They literally brought him out in a coffin and he like emerged from it. And then he got fired at the end of that season. So it was a very like weird like start to my tenure covering Mizzou basketball.
That's great.
He does have, but that means you were there with like the shot of Missouri basketball and the shot of Wednesday Night Sadness when Missouri hit that three to beat Bruce Pearl and Auburn back in the day.
Kevin Purrier probably never has to pay for a drink in his life. If he comes to Tuscaloosa, right?
Probably.
yeah. Yeah, fortunately, the University of Alabama has never been a part of Wednesday Night Sadness, and we hope to continue that trend. Well, Nick, actual introduction. Nick is a AL.com beat reporter for Alabama basketball, football, anything Alabama athletics. Um, in my opinion, the best beat reporter on the beat for Alabama athletics. And really good friend of mine. I'm happy that you're able to join us, talk a little bit about the game on Saturday, and then obviously the game coming up against your not your actual school, but the school you graduated from, and then Kentucky on Saturday.
Yeah, well, thanks for the kind words. And no, it is great to be with you guys. I know each one of you, so it's fun to yeah, be able to talk some hoops and it's a few things to talk about. So
Well, Nick, give us your thoughts. We're just going to jump right in. Give us your thoughts on Saturday's game versus Auburn, both from a fan's perspective, not you being a fan, but like from the crowd and environment perspective, and then from the play and the actual game in and of itself.
yeah, I mean that environment was electric. I mean, this is my fourth season on the beat, and it definitely was the best environment at Coleman. Like it almost felt almost a little claustrophobic. There was not much space. Like even like moving around the concourse, going to the bathroom, like just all of it was just felt very packed. And to be honest, most of the time it doesn't feel that just full. And it was. I mean, and it was loud. It was just a really fun. Just if you like college basketball, it was just fun to be at Coleman. And obviously, it took a pretty penny to be there, and so it wasn't by accident. But yeah, it was just a fun environment. And obviously, there have been other fun environments at Coleman. It's not the only time. It's not like it went from 0 to 100, but that environment, top to bottom, with it being a rival had some Auburn fans in the building, so that led to some animosity. Even had a few sneak into game day as well. But yeah, it was just a really fun atmosphere, which is why it was disappointing for Alabama that they couldn't get the win because if they could have gotten the win, if they could have somehow come back and taken a late lead, I mean that the roof quite literally might have blown off of Coleman Coliseum, and they might have had to build the new arena right then and there because that place would have just exploded, and it would have been awesome. But Alabama just could not quite find a way. They'd come close. They'd come within a couple points on several occasions, but just couldn't find a way to get over that hump to get past Auburn, and Auburn always kind of regained that lead. So disappointing outcome, but really just, I mean, you have to step back in for a second and appreciate just the fact that it was a great day for college basketball in this state.
Well, and you talk about making it close. Alabama was 2 of 12 when the game was within 3 points. I think those two shots were one. Mark Sears hit a three. It was either no, Grant Nelson hit a two or did a dunk 65-65. Then Chris Youngblood hit a three to make it 68-68. And other than that, Alabama didn't make a shot while the score was within 3 points. We've talked a lot about this year about Alabama's lack of killer instinct. Do you think that that's what showed up Saturday when you see this Alabama team? They just never had that, like you said, that moment where they just take the lead. Because I think if Alabama takes the lead at any point in that game, I think that they win. Not handily, but I do think that they win that game.
Yeah, I do think that you didn't see it show up. I think they have it, and they have guys who can do that. We've seen it from Grant Nelson. We've seen it from Jaron Stevenson. We've seen it from Mark Sears. Like we've seen these guys take over games, and so the evidence is there. But we didn't see it in a game like that when they badly needed someone to kind of put that cape on and play superhero. And we just didn't have anyone that we saw from Alabama's end do that. And so, yeah, I think that it's disappointing if you're hoping for that or if you're cheering for the crimson and white. But I think maybe more so frustrating because you know they have guys capable of that, even though maybe there is some concern about that killer instinct. But there really is. I think just maybe how do you wake that up is the question if you're the coaching staff. How do you get that out? Because I think in some ways you maybe saw some unselfish play, some guys like a Mark Sears driving a lot, and when he maybe should have passed, got rid of the ball, and so missed opportunities I think were there, and guys maybe I don't want to say forgetting their training, but just more so not maybe doing what they should or what the offense encourages them to do. And so, yeah, I think that they have to go back to the drawing board and hopefully figure out how they can improve next time they're in a close game or next time they have to come from behind.
When you got in the press room after the game, what did you feel like the demeanor was from Coach Oates during the press conference? I know you're also near the locker room, and I'm sure the guys are tucked away in there, but just kind of what was the feeling following the game against Auburn, knowing as we've kind of talked about, you still got 6 really tough games left on the schedule?
Yeah, it kind of felt like a big hat tip to Auburn of sorts from Oates in that, yeah, Auburn's really good. And now that I've seen him in person for the first time, yeah, Auburn's a really good team. And I think Oates acknowledged that. But at the same time, Alabama had missed opportunities. They didn't do some of the things that Oates wanted them to do or that the coaching staff asked of them to do. And so it ultimately came down to disappointment with how the team handled that pressure and facing a really good team. Because even as good as Auburn is, maybe historically good in some ways, Alabama still could have beaten that team at home, but they didn't. And so it was kind of a case of, like, for example, Auburn, Nate Oates tipped his cap to them to what they did around the basket, around, protecting the rim. But at the same time, he wasn't thrilled with how Alabama did around the rim scoring or lack thereof. So I think that it was a case of you can look at what Auburn did well and recognize, yeah, it's a good team. They didn't just lose to an unranked team that they should have no business losing to. But at the same time, being like, this could be improved. So I think it was a healthy amount of, all right, that didn't work. Back to the drawing board. We'll figure it out. We have big games coming up. And essentially, who's going to answer the bell? I mean, that was the question that he had is we have to answer the bell and really making that expectation clear because it's necessary. If I mean, they have to look at every game as one game because if they don't, you can't overlook any single one of these teams. I mean, they're all ranked down the stretch, and so they could beat Alabama. Even this Missouri team coming up on Wednesday is going to be really tough to beat on the road because it's a good Missouri team. It's not last year's Missouri team.
Yeah, and we're talking about, they didn't execute and they didn't do exactly what the staff wanted them to do. Nate Oates in his press conference said something about maybe they should have looked at the second half starting lineup and changed it a little bit. I'm going to go one step further. Do you think Nate Oates would make a change to the starting lineup as a whole going into the Missouri game?
I think it's possible. I think that you could look at maybe having two guards. Well, not just two guards, adding another guard in regards to having maybe say LeBaron Philon, or I mean, heck, maybe even Aiden Hallway in the starting lineup, just because you want guys who can create an offense that can create opportunities, and so making sure they're on the floor at the same time is a really good thing and could help Alabama a lot. And so yeah, maybe you do look to have a LeBaron instead of a Jaron Stevenson in the lineup, or maybe you do look to have. I guess you could go with what Sears, Youngblood, LeBaron, Grant, and Cliff, because then you have several guys who can create and several guys who, where if you set up shots for them, they can take advantage. Chris Youngblood is a type of guy where if you can set him up for a great shot, a lot of times he can take advantage now that he's healthy. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they toyed with that and they found a way to get an extra guard on the floor with that starting group. I don't know if that'd be a permanent switch or something they try, but I think it's something you have to look at.
And talking about the starts both in the first and second half, Alabama goes down by 10 points within the first 4 minutes of of the first half. And like Joey said before before we started recording, Alabama actually outscores Auburn by 1 the rest of the way. So the final 36 minutes. Going one step further, in the first 4 minutes of the first half, second half, in the last 4 minutes of the first half, second half, Alabama was minus 29. So Auburn outscored Alabama minus 29. But within the middle 12 minutes, so the middle 12 first half, middle 12 second half, Alabama outscored Auburn plus 20. What what have you seen from this Alabama? Because this isn't just a Alabama versus Auburn thing. This has been a consistent bad start for Alabama throughout the entire year, bad finish for Alabama throughout the entire year. What is it? Because obviously those middle 12 minutes, Alabama outscored Auburn significantly, but it's the first and last four that Alabama's struggled with, I think, almost the entire season. What's happening?
I think it's mindset, right? Where it's being ready to go in the case of the starting the game and it's finishing strong. I was looking at defensive stats today, and their points per possession allowed in the second half is considerably worse usually than it is in the first half. And that tells me that they're not sticking to what they're supposed to be doing defensively, and they're kind of letting up maybe late in games or in the second half. So, yeah, I think it's a case of it comes down to mindset. Because if you're able to do it in the middle, what do you say, 12, like, why can't you do it in the beginning at the very least? I mean, maybe understand a little bit, say that, I mean, this isn't Alabama's problem usually because it's conditioning is not usually a problem just because the way that they practice. But I could see some teams that maybe they start well, they play well in the middle, and then toward the end they start to get a little gassed or they start to get a little fatigued. They're not playing as well. But if you're doing it in the beginning and the end, that to me that says mindset. That says how you're preparing, the approach you're taking, how hard you're playing. And so, yeah, luckily it's something that can be fixed because it is a mentality thing. But at the same time, it's maybe concerning that it hasn't been because it should theoretically be somewhat easy to fix because it is a mentality thing. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a great sign, but I think it's something that Nate Oates needs to get on them about.
To add to that, I mean, the first four of the first half and the second half is typically the starting five, and you're starting four guys that are fifth-year seniors. This team, for a long time, Alabama teams have been graded on just getting to March, and I think this team is going to be graded on what it does in March. They won a bunch of games. They put themselves in position to be a number one seed again. Is it just like taking for granted the regular season, knowing that ultimately what the success of this year is going to be what happens in March?
I think it'd be easy to let that happen, right? I mean, these guys are people. Mark Shears is a person. Grant Nelson's a person. I mean, like they all have just the same mindset that I think a lot of people do who are watching this team is, okay, what's going to happen starting in March? What's going to happen starting in Nashville for the SEC tournament? What's going to happen wherever they end up in the NCAA tournament? So I think that it's completely understandable that the human nature element of it would let that happen. But at the same time, you would hope that they're mature enough and competitors enough that they wouldn't let that happen. But the other thing is, too, I think that fans want teams to be at a high level or individual players to be at a high level the entire season. It just doesn't happen like that very often. Even the best players tend to have moments where they slow down a little bit. And we saw last year where Mark Sears turned it on in the postseason, and look what happened. And so, yeah, I think that's the encouraging thing. And in some ways, I've talked to some people about the fact that because you look at almost the way that they got to the Final Four last year, where, hey, you can kind of have a solid regular season, but you don't actually have to have like a lights out regular season and win, the regular season championship. Of course, it'd be nice to, but to be able to make a deep run into March, you don't necessarily have to be playing that well in February. And so it does maybe send a bad, I don't want to say bad message, but just a message that could easily seep into your subconscious of, well, we don't have to do that well right now. And if we turn it up in March, it's all that matters.
Any other questions about the Auburn game before we move to the games this week? All right. So looking forward to the Missouri game on Wednesday. It's one that I've kind of circled and we've kind of talked about a lot, where it's a big game for Alabama because you have to make sure that this Auburn loss or win, when we were previously talking about it, doesn't make you too high or too low. What are you hoping to see from this Alabama team going to Missouri? I mean, this season Alabama's played exceptional on the road, a lot better than they have at home. What are you hoping to see from this Alabama team, just from your perspective?
Yeah, I hate to keep banging the turnover drum, just because we've heard so much about it from Nate. I've written about it a good bit, but I think limiting turnovers. Can they do it again from what they did against Auburn? I think they had what, six, seven against Auburn, which is one of their lowest marks of the season. And can they do that again? Because Missouri's a team that actually can turn you over. As far as steal percentage, Ken Palm has them, I think, fifth in the country among all teams. And so, yeah, Missouri can turn you over. And especially when you're on the road, the last thing you need is to give possessions away. So, yes, Alabama has shown it can win without limiting turnovers, but it just makes life harder for yourself when you're giving away possessions. And especially against these better teams, these ranked teams, there's not as much room for error. So I think really turnovers are going to be key. We've been saying a lot before, but just do again what they did against Auburn and try to replicate that on the road.
Missouri, University of Missouri, or Missouri University, you can correct me on that. Right there in the middle of the state. When Nate Oates got the job at Alabama, there was talk about, that there is a really passionate Alabama basketball fan base. Missouri has also gone through some difficult times. They had a little bit of success with Conzo Martin at times. Dennis Gates, his first 3 years have definitely been a roller coaster. What is the fan base in Missouri like? Is it a small, passionate group with a bunch of not bandwagon fans, but fans that start coming out when the team is good? Or, being kind of a Midwestern team, where basketball is very popular, is there a large contingency of Missouri fans that really, really care about this basketball program?
Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, at its peak, it really can be a basketball school. And obviously they've had success in the SEC really real early on in football. But as far as basketball goes, I think if you would ask a lot of people around Columbia, they would tell you that's maybe what they're used to going to and maybe enjoying more. It's hard to broad brush it just because football as a sport is just more popular nationally, just forget level or what have you. But yeah, I mean, basketball, Norm Stewart, I mean, they've had some good teams and they've had some success. And uh, yeah, I think it's definitely a program that fans will support. Now, is there some fair weatherness? Sure. And there have been some rough years over, at some point in the past decade or so. But at the same time, I think Dennis Gates is awakened quite a bit of that. And Konzo had his moments too back in, gosh, what year would that have been? 2017 when they landed Michael Porter Jr., which was an absolute coup for them. But then he played, I think, 21 minutes in college, so it wasn't quite as quite as what they chalked up to be. But it kind of was a start of maybe more of a ascent from the complete basement that Kim Anderson experienced. And Kim Anderson was a nice guy. I think a lot of people liked him. But just not very successful, especially at the end of his tenure. So I'm ever since about 2016, out of that just basement, and then last year took a big step back, but Missouri's right back up there this year and competing. Maybe not for quite an SEC title, but I mean, what are they fourth right now, third, somewhere around there in the conference? So. Yeah, a far cry from where it was a year ago where they didn't win a single conference game. So, yeah, I think there's more excitement than there's been in a while. And I think that when Mizzou Arena is, I mean, full and like fans have somebody to support, like it will be full and it's rocking. I mean, the Antlers, is I'm sure you guys are aware about, the very passionate, sometimes not the friendliest element of the student section is a big piece of that. And so, yeah, it can be a really good environment for basketball, and I think people will support it. I think one thing that hurt too was that the rivalry with Kansas went away for a while, and it's been brought back somewhat recently. But I remember even in 2017, I think it was, went to cover a exhibition for charity between Missouri and Kansas in Kansas City, and that place was packed out because they hadn't played each other's, I think, since Missouri left for the SEC. It's for an exhibition game, but it felt like now that I've covered a good bit of the NCAA tournament, it almost felt like an NCAA tournament game that you had both fan bases. So, anyways, all that to say, they definitely will support basketball there, and they've come a long ways from when I started as a freshman.
Glad you talked about Missouri coming. I mean, I know it's been a decade now plus that Missouri has been in the SEC. Do Missouri fans really feel like they are in the SEC because being in the East Division, but they're on the western part of, just how does Missouri feel like they really fit as far as within the SEC?
I think Missouri likes being part of the SEC. I don't know that even just when I was there to now, like it doesn't quite feel like an SEC school. I mean, it feels Big 12, maybe Big 10, but joined the SEC and has reaped the benefits of it, and obviously has been competitive in ways. I mean, the football team won 10 games this past year, and they won the SEC East in the first 2 years that they were in the league. So yeah, I mean, it's not that it's just been a complete like, hey, just happy to be here kind of thing, but no, it's not a traditional football power like an Alabama or like an LSU or something, of that nature. But yeah, I think because even when you look at their stadium, uh, Furrow Field, it doesn't look quite like an SEC Deep South stadium. I mean, it's good, but it's just not quite that vibe. But at the same time, I don't blame Missouri for wanting to have joined the SEC because it's just a better spot to be in from when the Big 12, I mean, back in 2011 when they split. So.
Well, outside of the Missouri game on Wednesday, you have the Kentucky game because for whatever reason, the SEC schedule makers decided that Alabama was going to play the most difficult back half of the SEC schedule I've ever seen on Saturday. Now, let's say for whatever reason Alabama comes out and loses on Wednesday. Do you think that it is, if they do, hypothetically, right? I don't think that they will, but if they do you think that we are in for a repeat of last season where they just crumble down the stretch?
I'd like to be able to speak confidently either way, but I don't know if I can just because even Nate was saying post game, hey, look what happened post Tennessee college game day visiting last year. And we need to make sure that we're mature enough not to let that happen again. So that's what he said post game. And so it sounds like he's kind of in wait and see mode. But I'll take the positive view and say, no, they're not going to let it happen again just because you hopefully learn from your mistakes. And I think that an Auburn loss like that, I mean, it's the first loss in what, a month? And I think that helps reset you a little bit. Maybe as a coaching staff, you go back and look at what you can try to do to set guys up for success better, how you can coach guys better. Players might realize, okay, that didn't work. I need to give the ball up more. I need to be more unselfish. Things like that you can do that can really help you to reset. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to lose that Auburn game, but they haven't lost in a while. And now that they lost again, it can remind them that they're not invincible. And that, yeah, you would hope that, I mean, Charles, you talked about all the fifth year guys they have. You would hope that their experience, their maturity would prevent that. So I'll take the positive view, glass half full. We'll say that is, they'll learn from last year and they won't have a similar end to the season. But then again, as we talked about before, if they do, who knows? They can still go to the Final Four. So it's kind of a weird spot to be in.
Vic Vitale is supposed to be there Saturday. Are you going to try to get close to him and see if you can get a "It's Awesome Baby" with a capital A before he can find the microphone for the game?
I actually was fortunate. I got to meet him in Tampa when I was there for a semester covering the Lightning. There was a event for childhood cancer, and this is actually before Dick had cancer himself. But he very very nice guy. When he talks to you, like, he put his arm like almost like around your neck kind of thing, just to be like, like talking like this, like, this could, just very friendly guy, really fun to talk to. So hopefully I'll get a chance to say hello if he is at the game.
Do you
So
think that I should be banned from Coleman?
Mainly so I don't have to talk to you, Christian.
Yeah, that
I mean,
makes
and
sense
I
too.
wouldn't say something like that. And I would be more gracious to, someone who has me on their podcast, but you started off calling me Canadian. So all bets are off on this one. So yeah, I think you should be banned, Christian. I'm going to say it.
And
At least banned in games where College Game Day shows up, because that's
That too. Maybe Alabama should be banned from games College Game Day shows up if they're going to continue the 0-2
There we go.
record that they're at now. So
That's the root cause right there. We got to it.
yeah.
I didn't ask this question before we got on, so I hope I'm right thinking that you will be in Nashville for the SEC tournament in a couple of weeks.
yes, yep, we'll be there. Yep.
How excited are you? I mean, you've got a job to do. You've got to put articles together. You've got to cover the game, but to be able to be there this year for this SEC tournament with so many good teams, what's your excitement level as we get into the middle of March to head to Nashville?
Oh, I mean, it's going to be awesome. And I don't know if I'll be there the first day necessarily, but as someone who covers Alabama, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun just because every game you watch, I mean, talk about getting value for your money of buying tickets to that. If you're going to go to that, like you're going to see a lot of good basketball. I don't think it's a case of you're not going to see good basketball for a few days, or you're going to have to, oh man, I mean, heck, I'll watch from home before I go. I mean, there should just be some good games. So I'm excited, interested to see what Alabama can do. But I mean, heck, every game could darn near be appointment viewing. So to quote the great philosopher Lane Kiffin, get your popcorn ready. So.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions for Nick? All right. Well, Nick, we appreciate your time. Let everyone that's listening know where they can find your work, what you're working on, different things like that.
Yeah, well, @_ Nick Kelly on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, AL.com, where you can check out our work. And yeah, just kind of looking ahead on some things, got some longer term projects working on. And so, but day-to-day coverage always there. So plenty to come and plenty of exciting things. I mean, spring football is coming up around the corner too. And of course, basketball is in full swing, and we'll see how long this Alabama team give it a run.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Nick.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good one.
We just want to thank Nick for jumping on. It was a little short notice. We kind of talked to him about it on Saturday. A lot to talk about. I'm glad that we could kind of keep it pretty concise because I'm pretty sure that we're going to go into it a little bit from our perspective. But guys, before I give my opinion, what was your opinion on Saturday?
I guess since I haven't really talked at all this whole podcast, I'll go first. For me, I mean, we already touched on it with Nick. You have the 4-minute starts, the 4-minute finishes. It's something that I'm going to get a little aggravated here. It's something that we've harped on all season long. How many times have we said over the course of this season, or even myself, have I said, you can't start games like that and expect to win against Auburn. You can't start games like that or finish halves like that and expect to win against Auburn. And that's exactly what happened. Auburn, it really seemed, and this might be a interesting take here, but it seemed like Auburn beat us at our own game. They played like we do. They were putting up threes, and whether they missed them or not, they were still shooting them. Hit 12 of 30 from beyond the arc. Low turnovers, which obviously we typically have high turnovers, but ideally we shoot to have as little few turnovers as possible. Bench points, they whipped us 42-32. They really, Bruce Pearl had his squad ready to go, and they really seemed like they were, I mean, it doesn't seem like they were the better team. They deserve that number one spot. There's a reason they've been number one for so long. There's a reason they stayed number one even when they lost. They very much deserve that for a reason. I gotta, you can't watch that game and not get, tip your hat to Auburn. They deserved every bit of that win. I do think there were some positives to Alabama. I did like how we reduced turnovers. I did also, even though they only turned the ball over 4 times, I did like that we were able to turn that into 7 points. So we were able to capitalize on that. We out-rebounded them 49-40. So we were doing well on the boards. Just a really bad, not just, I know if people look at the stats, really they'll just see a poor shooting night, but it was a lot more than that. It was very, very, very poor effort night, particularly to start and finish halves. If you take those, 12 or so minutes in isolation in the first half and the second half, that game one of, if not the best game of the season, like in college basketball. The problem is that Alabama didn't know how to start or finish those halves. And so that's a problem that's plagued them all year. Like Nick said, I agree with him. It seems like it's more of a mentality issue. This team is capable of coming out and swinging. We've seen that. We saw that was in the Texas game, right? Just this most recent game we saw. And it seemed like they'd been able to correct things and finish things out. But alas, you can't do that against a team like Auburn. Now, the unfortunate thing is that this schedule does not let up. Auburn, we don't have Auburn again until the end of the season, thank goodness. But that being said, you still have a very, very tough road game at Missouri. You still have a very, tough Kentucky team that we've already beaten once, but it was not exactly a dominant win for Alabama. And of course, the rest of the schedule we have. So, yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. But yeah, I was quiet for the first 30 minutes of this podcast for a reason. I'll turn it over to Charles now and drink my water and be quiet.
So I will start talking pregame because, and I shared this with Christian when I got back to our seats with about 10 minutes still on the clock before tip off. But I took a picture of the ticket line and there was nobody in it. Everybody was in their seat, ready to go 10 to 15 minutes before tip off. And I just thought that was really cool. Just from the standpoint of, people not taking it for granted as far as when they could get there, stuff like that, and that they wanted to be there for this game and to be loud and to be part of it. I love Chris Stewart. I think Chris Stewart does a great job. Really happy that he's been our basketball guy for 23 years and he's just now starting football. So what I'm about to say has nothing really to do with Chris Stewart. He was asked to be a part of a video and that's what he did. I have no idea why you changed the pregame video to an Auburn themed pregame video and just add more to what this game already was. I think it just was like adding on that, anxiety or whatever you want to call it, hype, when it wasn't needed. We already knew it was a big game. We already had college game day that morning. I just thought that, to be frank, I thought that was ridiculous to put a video together just focused on Auburn and talking about that this state bleeds crimson and stuff like that. That's something, just do what you do that's successful. We've talked about, slow starts. I know we've got KenPom and shot quality and, Bamalytics. I've been hammering y'all with Branchalytics for the past week of just doing different things, playing around.
Can J&J put that on a t-shirt, Christian?
But been really interested that first 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And there's a little bit of a gray area where it might be 17:25 on the first half clock. But I shared with y'all that of our SEC games, we're being outscored by 19 points in the first 2.5 minutes of our SEC games. We're down 64-45. And it's the same question I asked Nick or brought up, that we have 4 fifth-year guys. I don't know if it's just taking it for granted because the talent level is there and you're going to wear teams down. But with how we play and the focus that we have on defense, even if we're not a great defensive team, like our largest lead in SEC play within that first 2 minutes and 30 seconds is 4 against Arkansas. Everything else, we're either down or we're up 2. Like, we have just not come out and set the tone early. And it cost us in the Ole Miss game, where we were up 4-2 going into the media timeout and already had 5 turnovers and came out of the media timeout and had another turnover. And it cost us Saturday. Like, that game started with the jump ball. Cliff was not ready to jump. Cardwell beat him clearly. And then the first play to Miles Kelly, Chris Youngblood gets taken out on a very simple screen by Cardwell and is way late, and Miles Kelly gets an open 3. Then we come down. Our first offensive possession the ball is in Sears' hands. It doesn't touch anybody else. We never get to the paint. We miss a 3. We didn't get the ball into the paint into our 4th offensive possession of the game, where we were already down 9-0. Janai Broom's second 3, when he made it 9-0, came off an offensive rebound where Grant had a poor block out on Cardwell. And then when they made it 14-4, when Chaney Johnson hit the 3, It was a one pass into Chaney Johnson for three that Grant got lost in the paint, too late to recover. They knocked that. They're up 10, 4 minutes in the game, and we just had to play catch up the entire time. Janai Broome had 10 points within the first 8 minutes. He finishes with 19 points. He was 4 of 6. He finishes 7 of 16. Like, you, except for those first few minutes, you played Janai Broome really well. I thought a lot of talk is about Denver Jones and his defense was really good. I think there should be more conversation of Auburn's Alabama guys versus our Alabama guys. I thought LeBaron Feiline did play well. I thought he handled the moment well, but Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson stepped up, and Mark Sears and Chris Youngblood did not bring it like we needed them to bring it in this game. So there are definitely some positives. I thought Cliff got it going in the second half. I honestly, like, all the talk about Cliff and NIL and all that. That's why you bring in Cliff for games like this. And I thought after those first few minutes, I thought he did very, very well. Look, Aiden Holloway was nervous. That's to be expected. Not his best game, but he was still in it, still competing. Mohamed Diabate had his moments. Jaron Stevenson had his moments. So you're now you've lost this game, and that was also the question why I asked Nick the question about demeanor from NATO's, because what I take from the press conference is, yes, there's disappointment that you lost this game, and there is acknowledgement that you let some opportunities get away, but it doesn't feel like this is a game that is going to sit with this team and bleed into the Missouri game. We'll obviously find out on Wednesday, but I think it'd be a lot different if we were sitting here and we had played a great game against Auburn and lost close, and we're still kind of thinking about it. Those, like, very, finite missed opportunities at the end of the game. Like, we didn't play well. I agree with Joey. Like, they beat us at our own game. Not only did they make threes, they were much more physical than us. They were physical off the ball on defense. They would, body us up, get their hands on us. Not where I felt like it needed to be called a foul or anything like that, but we did a poor job of fighting through screen or fighting through to, cut and stuff like that. And that's why we only had 8 assists in the game. So I sound very frustrated just because these are things that I don't think a team with our caliber of talent and the leadership that we should have, that we should be struggling 12 games in, getting blown out in the first 2.5 minutes of the game. Or, as I also share with y'all through Branch Analytics, the last 8 minutes of our SEC games were minus 20, like minus 20. And you would think you have a lot of your really good players on the floor to close out these games. So I'm hoping, that it's a wake-up call, or it is something that we're going to get into March and this team is going to turn it on and they've just been saving it. And, we've been frustrated for nothing. But we're going to learn a lot, of course, about this team over the next couple of weeks. But I do still have a lot of confidence on this team. Like, I know I might sound fired up and energized, but I do still have a lot of belief in this team. I'm upset that we lost because we lost a game. And I would have liked to beat Auburn, but I know there's a lot more left in the season with this team, and that I think we're going to have a very successful stretch these last 6 games as we get into the SEC tournament.
I have to take a breath because this is what I'll say about the game on Saturday. Alabama loses by 9, shooting 19% from three. I think at one point they were 9 of 20 at the rim with 3 or 4 layups that were wide open. Mainly thinking Jaron Stevenson not dunking the ball, bounces out. Cliff Amore misses a lob, turnover. Aiden Holloway misses 2 wide open layups because he was afraid he was going to get blocked. LeBaron Philon doesn't check to see, or doesn't feel the pressure of, I think it was Chad Baker-Mazara coming behind him, gets blocked. That's 5. Grant Nelson takes off from the free throw line, which a lot of people don't like that shot attempt. Grant would have made the shot if Janai Broome didn't move out of the way. Grant thought he was going to get hit. Janai Broome sidestepped him so he wouldn't pick up a foul, and it caught Grant off guard, which is why he went for a layup instead of the dunk. That's 6 attempts at the rim that I think Alabama should have made when you were 9 of 20 from the floor, or from the inside the arc. That's 12 points. You lose by 3. I'll say this. The 3-point shooting, Auburn did a really good job of making us uncomfortable getting out of our spots. They backed us up. The 3 threes that we made in the second half were deep threes because we had to take them from that far because they were running us off the 3-point line. At the same time, just like Charles said, Mark Sears' opening possession doesn't give the ball to anyone else. He shoots a contested 3 that was way off the mark, lets Auburn get down, get another 3. After that, I believe it wasn't Jaron. Who was the other? Was it
Grant.
Youngblood?
It was one pass to Grant, and he shot a 3 from the wing. Basically, was our second possession of the game.
Yes, that's your second possession. You don't touch the paint at all. When, by the way, Auburn's one of the worst teams in the SEC at their rim rates, getting people to the rim. Which Alabama, once they started attacking the rim, found success, especially in the second half, despite the 9 of 20 that they were at a certain point. Mark Sears in the second half, last 4 minutes, Alabama's down, I think it was like 3 points. You have 4 consecutive possessions where Mark Sears doesn't pass the ball to anyone. He turns it over twice, misses 2 shots. Auburn then hits a 3. I believe they hit a 2 and then got a foul. And then we got 1 stop within that time. Mark Sears, with how good he is, and he is an All-American player of the year candidate, he's not good enough to take on 1v5. And that's what he did on Saturday night. When Alabama was most successful was when LeBaron Filan was having the ball, passing the ball to Mo Diabate. Cliff Amore had a few layups or a few dunks, and then setting up Mark for shots. Last year when we were successful, Aaron Estrada was doing that for Mark. Mark Sears, for how good he is not a 1. He can get 7-8 assists a game. He is not a point guard. He is a undersized 2 guard, and that's what he should be. For this staff, I don't know why they didn't make a change from the coaching perspective. Why are you leaving Mark Sears on ball when you know that this is what's going to happen? Mark Sears doing what he did at the end of the second half is not anything that's new. This was not something that came to light versus Auburn. Mark Sears at the end of every single half throughout SEC play has turned the ball over or has taken a highly contested shot that was not efficient. It's not anything new. For the coaching staff, I don't understand why you put the ball in. I get it. He's a player of the year candidate. He's an All-American. I get it. Put the ball in his hands, but he cannot facilitate the offense that needs to be facilitated when you didn't need a highlight play. Alabama so consistently on Saturday tried to make highlight plays to get a lead instead of make a play to get a lead. Mark Sears took a deep 3 when you had the game tied, which led to Auburn then going and taking a wide open 3 because he doesn't get back on defense because he's upset he doesn't make the 3. Right? Like, it's so frustrating to see, like, yeah, Alabama didn't play well. Yes, Auburn is good. Alabama could have beaten Auburn if they just executed their offense. At the beginning of the game, Alabama looked scared to turn the ball over because that's what Nate Oates had been preaching instead of running the offense. I almost rather would have had 12 turnovers on Saturday, but the offense moved than have 7 turnovers. And the guys, at one point you had Cliff Amore taking a 3. That's how bad the offense was, right? You had 2 assists, I think, at halftime. So for Alabama, if you want to get to the Final Four, if you want to be the national champion, if you want to be the SEC regular season champion, if you want to be the SEC tournament champion, Nate Oates said it after the Players Era Invitational, right? You missed the chance to win your first championship after the Players Era Invitational, and that's understandable. Latrell Wrightsell went down. That's a hard ask for a team to lock in for that. The next championship on the list is the regular season championship. You're a game behind because you didn't execute the offense the way that you know how to. Like Charles said, these are 4 fifth-year players on the team. These aren't freshmen. You want to know who one of the best players on the floor was on Saturday? LeBaron Filan, who's a freshman that's coming off an injury because he didn't let the game get to him. Alabama has 6 games left versus ranked opponents, including another matchup against Auburn. I just want to see this Alabama team play like the team that was ranked number 1 in the country going into the season. Play like the team that played versus Texas just a game ago, shot 60% from three, and was highly effective on the offensive end while having 20 turnovers, right? So, Joe, you said you're on a soapbox. I'm on my soapbox right now. Alabama's defense played well. Auburn made shots, but Alabama's offense is what cost them the game because one, coaching adjustments weren't made at the end of the beginning of the first half and at the end of the game, and two, guys try to play hero ball instead of playing like a team, like what Auburn did. So, for me, I need to see Alabama prove to me that they want to play and win like a team because that Auburn game, that was not it. It was not it. So sorry, I was a little long-winded.
Just maybe to put a bow on it, try to have some positive. Like we were down 14 and we continued to battle, which was great, and we tied it up. But I think we would all agree, don't, especially at home, don't put yourself down 14. And I was going to save this comment for when we were talking about Kentucky. I'll go ahead and say it now. I know it's been said a lot that this team likes playing on the road. They like going on the road. They like seeing opponents' fans leave early and stuff like that. Honestly, that feels really disrespectful to the fans that show up every game and have created some pretty incredible environments at Coleman that you have not gotten consistently throughout the Nate Oates era. You're going to get another great environment Saturday. I hope you respect what the fans are doing for you in creating those environments and respect the opponent, respect the game, and come out ready to fight and play 40 minutes from start to finish.
I'll say this, and I agree with you 100%. For Alabama and Nate Oates and the Alabama team, you cannot continue to lose these big games. And I know that they've won a lot of big games with Houston, Baylor. They won a few Iron Bowls. But the last two massive games in Tuscaloosa, which was the Tennessee and the Auburn game on Saturday, you came out flat and you got your butt whooped, right? For a program that's trying to get a passionate basketball fan base excited and growing, you cannot afford to lose those games. And I get it, Auburn's a good team, but I guarantee you that there's going to be less people in the stands because you lost that Auburn game than if you would have won the Auburn game. It makes people not want to come to games, not waste their time when you give the effort that you did at the beginning of the game and at the end of the game, right? It makes people not want to. I drove 6.5 hours one way for everyone in the Discord that likes to make that joke. Yes, I drove 6.5 hours one way. I still would go because I love Alabama basketball, even though I think I'm banned from Coleman. But for other fans, they won't make that journey. They won't make that. It's not worth my time. Oh, Alabama's hosting game day. They're going to lose. Why would I go to game day? Why would I go to this big game? Because they're going to lose. That you're not proving it to fans that invest their time and their passion into this program that you want to win, right? Moving forward, you got the Missouri game on Wednesday night, and you got to. Me as a fan, I'm stewing on the Auburn game a little bit longer than probably I should, but I'm not playing the game, so it doesn't really matter. I can stew on it as long as I want. Joey, what do we got for the Missouri game as far as a preview?
I think you meant Charles, not Joey. For that one.
Charles, sorry. Joey, you can give us a preview too if you want.
No, I'm good.
Missouri's a really deep team. They got 11 guys that average double figures in minutes. And what I would presume is most of their start, nobody averages more than 27 minutes a game in Mark Mitchell. Led by a lot of guards, shooting 30 as a team, shooting 37% from three. And it's not a high volume team. They're going to make about 8 on average. But as Nick said, they will get after you on the defensive side. They average 10 steals a game. Their top 5 guys in minutes, Bates, Mark Mitchell, Caleb Grill, Anthony Robinson, Tony Perkins, they all average a steal to a steal and a half a game. Anthony Robinson averages 2 steals a game. So when you talk about coming off of this game Saturday and being locked in and you know, turnovers is something we've all preached, something we focused on, something that this team could be locked in and still struggle with at times. And now you play a team that's really, really good at turning you over. Missouri has got some really good wins on their resume. They beat Kansas at home earlier in the year. They also went down to Florida and won, which was probably at the time the most shocking result of the SEC. They've beaten Ole Miss. They had a really good win at Georgia in Saturday, in my opinion. They are right there in the thick of it as far as trying to battle not only for an SEC championship. I mean, they definitely need some things to fall their way for that to happen, but to get a double bye in the SEC tournament, which I think is going to be pretty important for anybody who's wanting to win the SEC tournament championship. So this will be a different challenge than what we saw Saturday. They are not very big. I haven't watched a ton of Missouri, so length from side to side. I don't think there's going to be the length challenges that we've seen against other teams like Auburn this past Saturday. They only averaged 2.9 blocks. So I'm hoping that this is a game that we can go attack the rim. I would like to see us get back to not just having to attack the rim from the perimeter and drive to the basket, get Jaron Stevenson in the short corner, get Grant Nelson and Cliff on the block or at the elbow, get Darian Reed in those positions if he's continuing to get healthy, and Mo Diabate, and let them back some guys down and just go to work. Like, I thought that was something that we could have tried a little bit more. I mean, Auburn's going to be a little bit more physical. They've got the guys that you can bang against and not create a lot of space. But especially in games where we are going to shoot 20% from three or just can't get a lot of clean looks. Like, we are built more than any time, I think, under the Oates era to get some guys and just let them back them down and get close to the rim. So, I think a lot of people, a lot of Alabama fans are looking at this, maybe not so much focused on what Missouri can do, but just what is Alabama's mindset going to be. And I will, if I have to eat my words Wednesday night, I will. But I do just get the sense with how the game played Saturday that we will be focused and we will be ready to come out and play. And I should mention that Missouri does have one big, Josh Gray, who transferred from South Carolina, Missouri. He is a big guy, but he's just one guy that's going to be guarding Cliff, Grant, all those other guys. Like, this should be a game where we have a size advantage, in my opinion.
And this Missouri this Missouri team is, like Charles, just to reiterate what Charles said, they're not a bad team. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they have some pretty solid quality wins on their resume. I mean, they went to Florida and beat them in their own arena. Back to back, top 20 wins against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Barely lost to Tennessee, barely lost to A&M. Like, this team has some good quality stuff on the record, but a couple of things that concern me about this team is just that, teams that Alabama struggled with so far are teams that are really good at getting at the line and also teams that force turnovers. Missouri, like you said, Charles, they don't have length, which that could play in Alabama's favor, or at least they don't have a lot of it. But they're third in the country right now at free throws attempted a game. They're second in free throws made a game, average per game. And they're also sixth in the country in steals per game. They average 10 steals a game. So that's a little bit concerning, especially considering they're going to be playing in their arena. This isn't going to be at a neutral floor or in Coleman. So while this team, might not have the length, they might, be at a disadvantage in some areas. They are going to be in an advantage, I think, in some others. They're a fairly quick team as well. So we'll just have to see if Alabama's able to come out and set the pace, able to control those first 4 minutes of the game, control those, close out half strong, because this is a team that can really sneak up on you real quick, and you can be in a hole if you don't hold on to the basketball. So this is a good team. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to this one and, Kentucky up next. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Alabama to come back and to kind of just, I don't want to say answer the call, but bounce back after Auburn. It's a perfect opportunity to do that, or to set a negative negative expectations for the rest of this regular season.
And just while we're talking, Nate has been on Hey Coach, I believe. He said that we were so focused on not turning the ball over that we didn't move the ball enough, which Charles, you and I talked about that at like that's just what it looked like. Like it looked like
You said that within the first 3 possessions of the game,
yeah.
that
Like
too focused
it
on not turning it over.
it like that's what it looked like. The guys were literally when they were handing off the ball, like they were right next to each other handing the ball off. Like it was that like that. Um He also said we got 3 weeks until we see Auburn again, and we'll be better when we do. So obviously they're confident in what they're going to play or how they're going to play in these next 6 games. Um, I like I said, I circled this game as a trap game. Um, I probably would say Alabama. I feel pretty good about Alabama winning this one just because Alabama did lose to Auburn. I would be highly concerned about losing this one if Alabama had beaten Auburn. I just think that this team has answered the call and they did it. They did it versus Auburn. Like they proved it when they were down 14. They came back, they fought. They like the team didn't necessarily give up. It was just the amount of effort, lack of effort at the end. So I don't think that this team is a team that we kind of talked about a little bit that's going to crumble mentally. Like they've been very resilient, very headstrong team. Um, I think that Alabama comes away with a win because they have played so much better on the road, and I think that Alabama has a lot to prove now. Like there's a lot that Alabama wants to prove and has an opportunity to. Quickly, let's go to the Kentucky game this weekend. We've already previewed them previously. Hopefully they don't have or hopefully they don't continue to have the injury problems where I think 3 of their point guards were out last weekend. So Charles, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really know what Kentucky is going to be bringing into the game Saturday. Jackson Robinson's been out, Lamont Butler's been out. They've been having to go deeper into the bench and using Travis Perry and a few other guys. This is one, like I said, that I hope our guys come out, play well. It's a whiteout game, so I expect the crowd to be in it. And this is one that I hope the guys you're playing for the name on the front, and not just the name on the front of your team, but everybody that's supporting you all year. And it's not like this is the last home game. We've got a few more as well. But I hope there's a respect factor to we need to start playing well at home, not just playing well on the road. Got to defend the three. Kentucky has still shot the ball pretty well from three this year. Got to rebound. Amari Williams, down low has still been very good for Kentucky. Got to make sure the shooters that Kentucky does have, like a Kobe Brea, Otega Owe, some of those other guys, you got to do what you did, obviously, up in Lexington. And that was a great game. And yeah, I probably gave up too many points, but you scored 102 on them as well. I think this is just a maturity game, especially if Kentucky is continue to be hampered by injuries. I'm actually really excited about this game because I love it when Alabama makes history. The largest winning streak that Alabama has ever had on Kentucky in the series history is 2 games. So we're looking to tie that on Saturday and hopefully position ourselves either in the SEC tournament this year or as you get into next year and maybe finally break through that ceiling of winning 3 straight against Kentucky in this Alabama Kentucky series. So 5 o'clock game, some hype with Dick Vitale being there as well. I'm hoping the guys, regardless of what happens Wednesday night, that they approach this game the right way back in Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely. This week is a big week for Alabama. I think just watching it as a fan, there's a lot that I'm going to be looking at, seeing how they respond as a team, seeing how the offense changes, how the lineups change potentially. Just overall, just want to see a little bit more from Alabama, and I think all of us, and especially me, are hard on this team because we know what this team is capable of. We know the talent that they have. Um, and we want to see them put it all together. we talk a lot about the ceiling of this Alabama team, right? You score 85 points shooting 19% from three, right? Against the number one team in the country and a really good defense in Auburn. Like, you can't be like that. That just proves to you that there's so much more room for this team to grow and to be at, and you hope you see it. So maybe we see that this weekend. Maybe we see that this week with Missouri and Kentucky. Fingers crossed that we do. I won't be in Coleman next weekend, so we're not going to have a 3 of 31 appearance. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Like the last time I was in Coleman versus Kentucky. So I will share at a later date the shooting splits of me being inside Coleman. It's like 25% from three. I'm not gonna lie, in the last like 4 or 5 games.
They get nervous playing in front of you, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it is. But do we have anything else?
I just want to say, having the opportunity to go down there on Friday for some of the media stuff with College Game Day, and then sticking around and being able to be in Christy Curry's press conference, I'm really appreciative to women's basketball for that. One of the questions I got to ask Coach Curry is they had a week off in between games. They're actually playing right now against Texas A&M. And
They're
my
up 40,
question,
by the way.
yeah, my question was about rhythm. They'd won 3 straight, gotten into a rhythm. Is there any concern? And she had said, she'd like to just get in the rhythm of consistently playing, but that's how the schedule fell, that they had a week off basically. It seems that they've been able to keep that rhythm because, as you said, they're up 40. They're doing a Texas two-step on the Aggies right now. Charlie Kareem's latest bracketology for the women's side had us as a 5 seed going up to Columbus. So still right there on the edge of possibly being able to host the first and second round games in Tuscaloosa. If the bracket did come out today and we were going to Columbus and we go up there and take care of business of those 2 games, the Sweet 16 Elite 8 games would be in Birmingham. So they're getting towards the tail end of their season. For those who don't know or don't follow it closely, the women's SEC tournament is the week before the men's SEC tournament. It may be tough for this team to get a double bye, but should be pretty solid where they're not playing any Wednesday night sadness or anything like that, which I will mention again is quite a feat for this program with where it was, and just speaks to the job Christy Curry has done. But continue to support them, just like we'll continue to support the men's program as well. But I think up 40 at the end of the third, I can go ahead and say congratulations on the win tonight against Texas A&M.
Absolutely. I mean, they do have a chance. They play LSU towards the end of the season. LSU's the only team that's on their remaining schedule that's ahead of them. And they're 2 games behind them currently. So they'll need some help from somewhere in order to make it into those double buys. But as of right now, they're pretty fairly situated as the 5th seed, 5th, 6th seed in the SEC tournament, which is again just exceptional considering that. Let's see how many. That's 7 teams right now in the SEC that are ranked. So to be 5 or 6, that means you're doing extremely well. So go out and support them if you can. I think their next home game is my birthday, the 23rd, versus Auburn. So that would be the next time you'd be able to watch them. And then they have the home game versus LSU, and they end on the road at Oklahoma. So as far as our schedule is concerned, we'll have this up. When you listen to this, it'll be Tuesday midday. So this will be up. We'll have post-game space on Wednesday. As far as Saturday is concerned, I'm out of town, but I'm going to try to do a post-game space following the game. I'll let you guys know and let everyone know if I'm able to. And then we'll have the podcast next week as well. So that's our schedule. If you haven't already, shop J&J Apparel. We have some really cool things, not only with J&J coming up, but we're doing things with, I believe, Innisfree, Heat Pizza, and J&J. We'll be announcing that soonish once we get everything worked out for March Madness. Some really cool things for people local to Tuscaloosa that can, and then people not local, you can participate online in a couple of things. So be on the lookout for that. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. I think we're at 300 or like 295 before the end of the season. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with people. Any way you can support the channel would be greatly appreciated. But other than that, I think we're good to sign off. And we will talk again on Wednesday. Roll Tide.